Okay, hi, my name's Pilar. I'm going to be doing biscuits and gravy with eggs and vegetables as my thing, or as my final project. And I'm making the biscuits and gravy from scratch. The biscuits are store-bought, so they're in the oven already. And then I have everything set up for it. But for our module 2 that we had, we have to talk about how 2/3 of our, the human body is water. And then most of our fats are non-polarity, so which means that they don't dissolve, but that's only some of them. It's not all of them. There's there's a list and everything in the book. And the DNA in our protein can change the cooking process because the way that they all get cooked, the way that they process all of everything is the DNA that's in the protein will always change. And I'm going to be using the convection oven for my biscuits. They're in the oven right now. It's cooked at 350. But I'm going to start with the eggs. But since I'm going to do the vegetables first, we have to put the vegetables in so then they can simmer and so then they can get everything all situated together so then they're not cooked whenever you're done with the eggs because the eggs cook so fast. So I only did 6 eggs. I'm going to scramble them up. So I'm going to add milk as a little diluent just so then the eggs are a little bit fluffier whenever they're done cooking, and it also kind of multiplies how much there is by adding the milk as a diluent. I don't really measure how much milk, it's just kind of however much you think, depending on how much eggs you do. The eggs are not like an orangey color anymore. They're kind of a cream color just because of the milk. And then salt and pepper to taste. It just depends on how much you want. If you put a lot of pepper, you can put a lot of pepper. It depends on who you're cooking for and what you plan to do for yourself. Right now I'm sauteing the vegetables before I get the eggs all put in there. And I know you can't really see the stove. I'm trying to get it there. You have to cook them both first. Since I did 2 different vegetables, I'm doing them both at the same time. If you just do one, just do your singular, or you can do them separately in different pans, depending on how many vegetables you have, if you have a big enough pan for it. I normally do until the tomatoes aren't as drippy anymore, or whenever the mushrooms get a little bit more of a golden brown, pretty much. Just kind of you don't want your vegetables to be completely raw, but you don't want them to be fully cooked, so then they're overcooked whenever you pour the eggs in. So now that they're a little bit, I'll show you. They're brown. They're a little golden brown. That's kind of what I use for a saute, basically, for my mushrooms. And then the tomatoes are pretty much dried out a little bit. Just turn it down since it's cooking. Now I'm going to pour the eggs in. So whenever you're doing scrambled eggs, you kind of want to let it sit for a little bit, and then you move it around. You don't want to let it sit for too long, because then it's going to end up having to turn into an omelet because you have the whole bottom part cooked, and then you don't have any of the situations where it'll be all crumbles or anything like that. You'll have a complete solid egg. And I chose to do scrambled eggs because it's the easiest one to do without having the chances of all the protein being cooked out of the eggs. So whenever you do your hard-boiled eggs, or when you do your over easy eggs, your over easy eggs don't have as much protein as it would if the yolk and the egg whites were combined together. So whenever you do like the hard-boiled eggs, it's the same amount of protein as you would for scrambled. It just is less work. I guess that's why a lot of people do it. But your omelets will also be a little bit less protein, just due to it having to be overcooked, so then it gets stuck together, so then you don't have it falling apart and you don't have it turn into scrambled eggs. I have it on a little bit low just right now. And then we'll check on the biscuits every now and then. Should be about 5 minutes or so left on the biscuit. They're just about done. So once they get out, we'll get started on the gravy. So with the gravy, I have my own little sausage all cut up so then I can pour it in. So then because it's being homemade, it's not like a package or anything like that. You don't have to put your sausage in your gravy or anything like that. I also did cook previously the sausage just because it was easier to do before I did the video, so then it didn't take too long. We are going to add some feta cheese as a dairy product pretty much, besides the eggs. So the extra dairy would be just the milk and the cheese. So with the feta cheese, you don't really add that until the very end. So whenever you're cooking at the very end of your eggs, whenever they're getting a little bit thick, but they're still runny, you'll add the cheese, so then the cheese can melt with the rest of the eggs together. So then you don't have these big crumbles of cheese. Take the biscuits out. The biscuits are pretty much done. Now that my eggs are pretty much almost done, I'm going to add the cheese. The cheese could be considerably another diluent for the eggs just because I am adding so much. It's going to be pretty much like adding the milk. It's personal preference. If you don't want cheese, you don't have to add cheese. It's all up to you. So that's pretty much for the eggs. Here's the eggs, my protein. And then we're just going to push it kind of towards the back. And then we're just going to turn on the little burner in the front so I can do the biscuits and gravy. So I will be using a recipe that I do have on my phone. So So it's a half a cup of butter, since butter's in sticks. It's 8 tablespoons equals a half of a cup, so we're just going to kind of pour the half of a cup in here. So the gravy could also be considered a starch because we do add the cornstarch in it just so it can thicken up whenever it's the homemade one. Because whenever you buy it in the little packages, it already has the cornstarch and everything all together. So technically I have 2 starches, which is my biscuits and my gravy, but I'm using my gravy as my sauce today. And so you're pretty much just going to add, so I'm doing a half a cup of butter, and then you're going to do a half a cup of flour, and then 4 cups of milk. Just get all that together. And then you have to do a half a teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. So I'm just going to take all my stuff. So I'm going to do my butter. I melted in there. I put my butter in there. Now I'm going to do my 4 cups of milk. So I have my half a cup of butter. I have my 4 cups of milk in there. And then I gotta do a half a cup of flour. So here's my half a cup. And then I did choose the breakfast meal because breakfast is my favorite meal. So I like to do the breakfast cooking rather than anything else. Here's my half a cup of flour. Kind of a little bit higher, but it's just because it's uneven on one side, so I left it alone. I'm going to pour the half a cup of flour in there. And then your half a teaspoon of salt. Grab it in there, and then we're going to top it off. Make sure you top it off where it's flat so you don't add too much. And then your 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. Topped off. And then we'll add the sausage a little bit after, just because the sausage is already cooked. We'll add the sausage a little bit later. And then you just grab your whisk. You're going to whisk it all together. We're still waiting for the butter to melt a little bit. So as the butter melts, we're just going to stir it around until the butter gets all the way melted. And so once I'm going to stir up the eggs a little bit. So I did choose gravy for the sauce instead of doing some like extra stuff, like doing some sauce on my eggs or anything like that. I did the gravy for the sauce because I felt like it would be a better duo to have your protein for your eggs and then have your starch be your bread. I just felt like it was something more common that everybody does. So that's why I chose this meal specifically. Still waiting for this butter to heat up. Wait for that. But like you could do starch, like if you were to do a starch for a dinner, you could do the starch as in like pasta, breads, rice. It's mainly pure cornstarch is what I use all the time. It's this one. That's what we add. Mainly, you can do it. It goes into pasta. It goes into everything pretty much. And then you kind of do it by taste or by tell. Like if it's too thick, then you know you don't need to add any. If it's not thick enough, you know you need to add a little bit more. That is not wanting to cooperate with me. And then since the biscuits are all done, I'm going to put them on the plate so then they can be ready. Like I said, the biscuits were just in a can, so it wasn't anything like special, so that's why I kind of started them before, so then they weren't taking so long on the video itself. But I have all the biscuits on here. This pan on my... It's slowly getting there, the butter's slowly melting. So right now you can see it's still just like a white consistency. It's nothing in particular. It's nothing special right now. I haven't really added much. I'll probably add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch for now. See what I can get. I just need 1 tablespoon to see if that kind of helped it a little bit. Since the butter's almost melted. Now that the butter's melted, I'm going to add all the sausage. So I did use spicy sausage today. So that's another source of protein because it is the meat. You don't have to put meat into it. It's up to you. And you're basically just going to keep on stirring it up until it gets like a thick consistency that you would get on your biscuits and gravy anywhere that you would go. And then if you notice it's not getting any thicker, you can add more cornstarch. It's honestly, there's no cornstarch in the recipe, but the cornstarch just helps it get thicker. So you can just add it. Hope it gets thicker as it goes. So the first time I just did, so far I've only done 1.5 tablespoons because I'm only doing it by like half increments basically, just so that I don't add too much. If you feel you need to add more salt and pepper or you need to add anything else, go on ahead and add on up to you. Just keep stirring it so it gets thick. little bit so then it can get a little bit warmer. So that's that. I'm going to post a picture along with it instead of finishing it with the video, just because I am using my computer. I'll take a picture of the result and then end it with there.